I'm having a Punky Brewster moment. It worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put the dibbly-doo up there so you can go watch that video first, because I've been trying something and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And it totally did. You ready? Here's the reveal. This... I don't even know how to talk about this. I'm still, you know, when you get that like post cast off, well, mostly cast off. I have obviously a lot of weave ends to weave in, but you get that like cast off happy thing going on. I'm totally still in that phase because this took forever to block. This is blocked. It took forever to dry. It took like 3 days. And I mean, it's just been gross here, so that probably has something to do with it. And it's, even when it's nice, it's humid. So it just didn't want to dry. It was just there for like ever, and it was driving me crazy because I wanted to see like how the fabric was going to work and whether it was going to be as sort of ridiculously drapey as I was expecting, which it is. A 22 stitch gauge, that's hardly surprising. So this is my well, not hand spun, but Noro. This is my Noro Nordiska, which really isn't a Nordiska in anything but like the color work and the raglan actual cables. In no other way is this a Nordiska. In the shaping, in the everything else, it's not. It doesn't fit like one. It doesn't have the balloon sleeves and the thing, because I wanted to be able to layer this. This is not a piece I was going to wear just on its own. But oh god, look at how the color work in the Noro going into the black makes me so ridiculously happy. Oh, that pleases me to no end. It pleases me to no end. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. But I'll tell you like actual things about it. I probably should have waited to record until I was like human again, but that wouldn't be any fun. So you're either gonna think it's hysterical to watch me being a 4-year-old in a candy shop, or you're gonna find it really annoying and tune out, and that's fine, you know. But if you want to know how I modified, heavily modified this Nordiska, I will now tell you. First, I will tell you the yarns I used. This is what I have left. I only needed 2 balls of the Noro. So even though it's a pricier yarn, it's not when you're only using 100 grams of it. How that worked, I don't know. It's a sport weight, but this is really knit. It likes the 22 stitches an inch, or over 4 inches. I was watching a couple of videos when I was contemplating this, and they were talking about that's the gauge that it really liked, and I absolutely concur, because this fabric is really nice. And it was really nice to knit with, the Noro. It's really nice to knit with. It's, I don't know. I didn't think I was good. I didn't used to be a member of the Noro Club. I didn't used to. I thought it was, what is the deal with this stuff? And when I felt it in skeins once in webs, it was, I just didn't love the hand of it. This I actually do love the hand of. There is silk content in this. I forget what the content is. I'll either put it on screen or I'll put it in the description box. There's silk, I think there's alpaca, I think there's linen, and then of course wool. And it is hand spun, which I don't know how that works. I don't know how they do this. I don't know how they make giant, I mean, is there like an army of women in Japan spinning yarn? I have no idea. But apparently this is hand spun. See, now I gotta know. No, I will not pause the video and go find out. Anyway, I really like the Noro. I really do. And I like the way the striping sort of, I'll show you the back because that's where it's sort of the clearest. The way that it works up is very organic, and the way the colors fade into each other and the way that they play is really beautiful. So however they do it, I'm happy they're doing it. Of the 2 balls of the Noro, I think it's 18.6 grams left, because I have a little bit of sort of, you know, that kind of stuff going on. Because there was one, and you can just barely see it. The only time I messed with the color was right at the girls, because there was going to be a turquoise stripe right there, and I didn't want that. I didn't want the attention, because brighter colors move forward, and I kind of didn't want the I didn't want the girls coming at people. That's not a look I'm going for. That was the only time that I messed with the color. Everything else just is played out naturally. So this came from there, and I'm very glad I did that. And I feel like it still works. I feel like it's not super obvious that it's missing. You know, it's not like, oh my God, where's the turquoise? Something about the colors, and they are a little bit different every time it sort of runs through its thing. They are a little different, both in how much yarn there is in that color, and so how thick the stripe or whatever will become, and how dense it is. Some of the turquoises, partly because of the spin, when the spin gets a little bit looser and you're in the brightest color, it pops more, whereas when it's a little bit more tightly spun, you get a slightly, you can, see it appears to be slightly darker in this stripe than it does in this stripe. And that's just because of the tightness of the spin plus the brightness of the color, or possibly it just had a little bit more of the turquoise than whatever else they were spinning it with. I don't know, but there is a nice variation. The other yarns that I used are, this was the Woolfolk Tynd, which again is probably one of the most beautiful yarns that I've ever worked with in terms of how it knits up. I don't love knitting with it. You can see at the bottom of the sleeve, you can see the color on its own. It's that ending color there. And a sweater in this, if you can afford it, it would be spectacular. It's so, and this is sort of like, I don't know if it's going to show. Oh, darn it. Oh, my light ran out of battery. It didn't run out of battery. I just forgot to turn it on. But it turns out you guys can actually see stuff, so I'm leaving it off. So, I mean, you're not going to see the raisin perfectly. That's not a thing, but you wouldn't see it with the bright. It would just blow it out, and so you couldn't see it anyway. So we'll run with that. So the Woolfolk Tynd, I can't recommend it enough. It's 100% merino, but it is the softest merino I've ever felt. The spin is very loose, so it works up. Is it probably going to pill insanely? Yes. Do I care? No. No, I really don't. If you can afford it, I would definitely do a whole sweater in that. I would also do a sweater in the Canopy, which is a very different yarn. It's a wool, what is it? Wool bamboo silk, I believe. I'll correct myself because I'm probably getting that. I know it has bamboo in it. And the sheen on this, there's just enough sheen that it makes the color look really deep and interesting as the light plays off of it, and you see just a little bit of that tonal thing that's going on and the slight different colors that are inside of this one, what is essentially a brown. Oh, that still has a label inside. I can tell you. I can tell you what the fiber content is. 50% baby alpaca, 30% merino, 20% bamboo. So this is the Canopy fingering, Fibre Company Canopy fingering in the colorway Sarsaparilla, which I would also enjoy a sweater's quantity out of, but also couldn't afford because it's $14 for 50 grams. So that would be 200 yards. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 6. That's not actually that bad. That's not that bad. And certainly a t-shirt of this would not be bad either. It is very beautiful. Also knits up very nicely, very pleasant to work with. And last but certainly not least, I used the Tunt Garn, the Tunt Garn by Ull Centrum, which is this stuff, which it softens up so nicely when You would think these texturally are so incredibly different. This is soft and fuzzy. This is just soft. It's not even there. It's air. And it sticks to itself like you wouldn't believe. Don't make mistakes in this yarn. It's kind of a pain in the neck. This stuff is beautifully workhorse, in the direction of workhorse. It's rustic. It's still soft, but it's significantly more rustic than this is. But together, it makes a really, really, really beautiful fabric. So the bright pink that you can see in there is the Tunt Garn. The middle gray is the Canopy. I went and I used that for here because I didn't think I was going to have enough yarn, and I also didn't want a stripe there. I didn't want that stripy color work in the middle of those X's and lines. So that is where the Canopy is. And I also used it in the sleeves to stretch out. This should all be the darkest color. But in this bit, I just wanted to stretch the yarn. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. Mathematically, I should have had enough yarn, but I figured, So I changed the color work in this section, used different yarns for different things. And I'm very happy with how it came out. So I'm not going back and changing it, even though I probably did have enough yarn. So, modifications that I made, all of them. So I changed I used the numbers to start with. I started with the same number of everything, which I might not have done. Were I doing this again, I might do that a little bit differently, because the way that the start of this is, I don't love. So I would probably change that in some way. I'm not really, yeah, I do know how. Anyway, if you buy the pattern, you can have a think, and if you ask me, I'll tell you what I would do. But I don't want to give anything away because it is a paid pattern. I can't remember if the neckband is integrated on this. No, it can't be. If it is, it shouldn't. No, you pick up for it. You would have to pick up for it. Either way, I've been doing that a lot. I've seen a lot of patterns that have an integrated neckband, and I really prefer to pick up. I feel like you're giving the seam, the weight of the sweater is not resting on the collar, it's resting on the seam, and therefore your collar is less likely to stretch out, which is obviously a plus, because it's only got this much. There's no weight hanging on it. I changed the increase rates. I started the sleeves later because I knew basically the Nordiska, it's supposed to end like way down here. It's not quite a swan show, but it's in swan show territory, which I didn't want. I wanted to be able to wear this with a jacket, so I knew I was going to not do the aggressively large arms, which I think is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I just, for the way that I wanted this particular garment to turn out, it wasn't the right direction. So I modified the raglan, and I've got a video on that if you want to see how that works. Because we're going to end up with arms that I've got 2 inches, 3 inches of positive ease on the arms. So they're not fitted, but they're not the balloon that the original design goes for, which meant that I also wanted to start later so I could have not as much fabric up here. I changed the increase rates for the V to make it deeper. So when I was doing the increase rates on this side, I changed those so that I would end up with a larger, deeper V, because some of them, they're sort of all over the place, right? And it depends on your pickup ratio. It depends on a lot of things. But I knew generally where I wanted to. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And then I stopped. So basically I did all of my own increases. There's only a very brief section of time where I'm doing what she told me to do, which is fine. That's to be expected. And because I was going for a more, it's not fitted. I still have at least 6 inches of positive ease on this sweater, but at least 6 inches of positive ease, but it is overall smaller than the design than Caitlin Hunter intended. What else did I do? I told you I changed the color work. So because I split so much earlier than you're supposed to. So again, the sleeves on this particular raglan I mean, you can see in the garment photos, the sleeves are supremely deep, even for a raglan. She's exaggerating that raglan shape, which is beautiful, but you then can't wear a coat. And I am likely to be in a place where I'm going to need more than just a sweater as outerwear. So, or I could only wear it in spring and fall. And this to me is going to be a fall winter garment. I can't stop touching it. I'll stop now. I'll stop. She recommends that you make the part between the separation longer, so you know how large, you know how many inches this takes up based on your row gauge and how many rows are in the chart and how many rows of ribbing you're going to do. Which I actually did as she instructed. I think it's 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I did 5 rows of ribbing. I did a Russian bind off, which is a, I don't know, it's stretchy. But it's stretchy, but it's not flary, I think. It might be a little flary, but it's not aggressively flary. But it's sort of, you're not going to be able to see this because I didn't turn the light back on, so you probably won't be able to see the detail on the bind off. But it gives you, because you're doing knitting and purling, it's you knit one, and then you knit one, you knit the second one, you slide both of those back over, you knit them through the back loop. You then knit one more, or purl one more if your next one's a purl, and then either knit through the back loop or purl 2 together. So you're sort of working a stitch and then working those 2 together. I think it gives a really nice edge, but it is a knit bind off as opposed to a sewn bind off. And I'm lazy. The difference of finish on this versus an Italian bind off, even if I'm like this close and staring at it, I'm not really going to see a difference. So therefore I'm not going to do it. What else did I change? I changed the sleeves completely. I started the color work immediately after binding off. Oh, and I added a gusset. I did add a gusset. I added a gusset for 2 reasons. One, can you see my gusset? Yeah, you can kind of see the little triangle there. So technically I added a half a gusset because somehow I screwed up my math. I was obviously too excited about all the color play and all the stuff, so I wasn't paying enough attention, and I was a couple increases short on where I wanted to be on the arms. And I could have lost it's this big, so that's what, 1.5 inches. I could have lost the 1.5 inches and still had, but I wanted it roomier. I wanted it to be a balanced amount of roominess. So I ended up, I don't know what half a gusset's gonna do. I don't know how that's gonna work. We'll find out. I'll report back once I've worn this sweater around the house, because obviously I can't, wear it out with all of these hanging everywhere. But we'll see how that works. I intended to put a full gusset in because of the construction of the sweater. It's one of those ones where you lift your arm and it's like all the way up, and I can't do that. So, or I like to minimize that when possible, and a gusset does help. So you get the extra fabric and then you lose the extra fabric. So I have half a gusset. It's a gusset on the body side and it's not a gusset on the sleeve side. We'll see how that goes. And then I started the color work immediately after binding off. Immediately. Not after binding off, after when I reattached the yarn to start the sleeves. I do the Turkish underarm cast on, which, and I didn't pick up a stitch in the thing, but I could have twisted that one. I probably should have twisted that one. Again, I don't really care. Who's gonna, if anything, it's a little extra ventilation. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't, Anyway, I'm going to shut up about the underarms now. I immediately started the color work, changed the color work. The stitches are the same, the pattern is the same, just the colors are different than the original. And then I did, for some reason, so I did a 2x2 as instructed on the body, which is, it's fine, but it annoys me that I'm going from, because of the way the color work is, it doesn't balance nicely with the ribbing, which it's a dumb me thing. That's not a thing to anybody else in the world, but it's a thing to me, and it doesn't really matter. I just kind of I did it on the body, and I was like, I don't know if I love that. I wasn't sure if it was going to lay flat with this little ribbing. So on the sleeves, I did a 3x1 rib, which makes more sense. And I didn't want it as a 1x1 is very obviously ribbing. A 3x1 almost looks like stockinette. The problem is that you can see that it's flaring. And because of where this hits me, which is just after my elbow, which I really kind of like, even though it's a very weird, it looks really good, but functionally it's a bit odd. But I don't think I mind it. I think I kind of like it because I always have my arms free. If I'm doing dishes, I don't have to move my sleeves out of the way. But they're not tight, so it's not impeding the movement of the sweater in any way. It just looks a little weird when I do things like this. And then I have this sort of gaping hole, which is not helped by the fact that because it is a 3x1 rib, you can really see the flare. And I don't know about that. I had intended to do a Latvian braid at the bottom of the cuff, and I completely forgot, or maybe I just decided I wanted the black or the, raisin, but I don't know. So if you have any ideas, I'm all ears, because I don't love this, but I don't want to do 2x2 rib. I don't really want to do, I'll do 1x1 if I have to, because I think that the flare is worse than the ribbing would be. And it's only 5 rows, and this yarn is so, it has a complete lack of stitch definition. It just, I'm looking at it and I can't see anything. It just, I don't know how to explain it. It has no stitch definition at all, which is beautiful, and I suppose that means I can get by with 1x1 rib, and you'd probably never notice. So possibly the way I go, we'll find out. And again, I think I did the Russian bind off on this. For the neckline, I just picked up the appropriate ratio. I completely forgot how to pick up, though. And I picked up half as many as I was supposed to, because when you're not slipping a stitch, which you don't want to do when you know you're picking up, and you get the little purl bump, and I wasn't counting that as a row. I don't know what happened. Again, I think I was too excited about the color work. Obviously I fixed that. That is no longer the case, but it took me like a good hour to sort of, for the penny to drop and me to realize why that was weird. I do have, because of the way that the decreases are done, I do have that little gap in there, which I'm not going to let it bother me, because I like that it's the 2 knit stitches coming into each other. So hopefully that will just sort of work itself out. If not, I'll probably pull the extra yarn back across, and that will close that up. I haven't done it yet. I was hoping it would block out. It didn't. And then on the neckline, I used the Noro, and then I used the Tunt Garn, and then I bound off, or I did 1 row and then bound off with the Canopy. So there's a very small reference. You can barely tell, but I feel like it's noticeable. There's sort of this just small reference of color to that bottom, but I didn't want the dark, so I went with the Canopy. I love this. God, I love this caramelly. The caramelly bits on this are so beautiful. I would take a whole sweater in that. I'm basically wearing a whole sweater in that. Never mind. No, they're a little different. They're really not. They're really not. Anyway. And I believe that is all I have to say about my Nordiska. Which, hang on, I'll be right back. I'll put it on for you. But see what I mean? It's sort of like that, because it's just where my elbow is. When I, I don't know, which is obviously also probably contributing to that, and that's why I want to counter it, because I don't want it, I just want it like that. I suppose I could decrease, no, but then you'd see the decreases and it would be weird. I don't know. I don't have a solution yet, but I freaking love this sweater. Oh, I knit the body on size 7s, which I usually go up one needle size from what patterns, and to get the same gauge, I would be one needle size higher than the average person. So it would be like knitting this on 6s. I knit it on 7s. Because these are fingering weight. Okay, so this is a sport weight. Canopy is a fingering weight. Tynd's a fingering weight. Fingering weight, right? The only, but this is hand spun, so it has, anyway, the point being is that it's basically a fingering weight sweater. It's intended to be a fingering weight sweater at this gauge. There was no way I was going up a needle size. I was not going to knit the color work on 8s. I didn't swatch the color work. I mean, I did swatch the color work in terms of I checked to see if I liked the fabric. So I did do a color work swatch on the 7s, but I did not block it. I just checked to see, because I was a little nervous. I mean, that's a loose gauge. It is a loose gauge, and it could have gone wrong. It didn't, but it could have. And I didn't block it aggressively. I really did just lay it flat to dry and then occasionally sort of shook it and then put it back down. But the sleeves I did do on 8s because I am even tighter on a small circumference. So I did go up because I was starting, and that's also part of the reason I wanted the color work higher. I wanted visually, I wanted the color work to start up here. I thought about doing intarsia color work so I could start the sleeves even higher, and then realized that I was a crazy person and decided against that, because trying to make that cabling not be weird, no, that would have looked a little odd. If I had started it, I would have started it up here. Arguably it's under my arm, but it's not really, so I did not do that. But I did start immediately so that I didn't have a row of, I mean, I could have just done that on 7s. No, anyway, I wanted to do the color work up as high as possible anyway, but it was convenient that I did start it up there so I could go straight to the 8s and not have a gauge problem, right? Which I don't have a gauge problem. I don't see or feel it pulling in, but it does bunch there, which I'm assuming is because a sweater is bunched because your arms, the fabric moves up, and of course it's going to bunch right where the color work starts because this is a much thicker fabric than this is. So, but when it's lying flat, there's no visible pulling in, there's no visible going out. The gauge, I haven't measured it, but it does appear to be correct. So, for what that's worth, it's not worth anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There is a weird thing where it feels like it fits differently in the back and the front, so it's not quite sitting correctly. I mean, it is, but it's not. I haven't worn it long enough to really be saying anything about that, so I'm just going to shut up now. It's probably nothing. It doesn't, I don't have to fidget with it when I'm moving. I think it's just because of the way A, my body shape, and B, everything else. Shutting up now. Because anyway, overall, I'm really, really happy. I'm really happy with this sweater. And in the winter, I will definitely be wearing this with fingerless gloves, because, I mean, really, like the Punky Brewster thing, I didn't realize what I was doing until I did it, and I'm so clearly having a Punky Brewster face, which I'm totally okay with. Like, it's a look I am happy to go for. I'm going to wear this with my sprocket socks, and I don't know what else, but, and some tweed, just to, confuse people. So that's my hand-spun Nordiska. This is the result of my crazy will it work color question, exploration, situation. In this case, the answer is I think it worked. I'm really happy. I'm incredibly pleased. If you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to wear it. You can't have it. And that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.